Hey everyone, the Disgaea 7 demo recently came out. I was excited to try it out and see if the game undid its various missteps introduced with Disgaea 6. The game will come out in the beginning of October on the Nintendo Switch, Sony PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and PC Steam. The demo exists for all of those except the PC version, unfortunately. I tried them all out, that means PS4, 5, and Switch, just to see what the differences are, and I'll show you them here and explain my experience with the Disgaea 7 demo. The demo allows you to play a decent portion of the beginning of the game. That's like, I think, the first 2 chapters or so, and you can continue your progress once the game is out. So is it better than Disgaea 6? I think yes. There's a lot to like. I think the Edo period Japan-style netherworld is fun, and the story itself is wacky and crazy, just like how it should be. About 15 minutes in, we already have a character suddenly snorting gunpowder, which I can't remember happening in any other game I've played. But I do have various criticisms, especially with the graphics and performance, which we'll get into. The gist is that the PS5 version looks the best, PS4 is a close second, looking almost identical and running smoothly at 60 FPS. And then there's the Nintendo Switch version, which does not reach 60 FPS in graphics priority mode, while also looking a little bit flatter due to the fact that it looks like as if a shader is turned off compared to the other games, or the other ports rather. Plus there's also some visual stuff that applies to all versions I don't like, which are battle animations or lack thereof, and a loss of creativity with the animations compared to the previous games that used 2D sprites. So yeah, I'm still not happy that they stuck with 3D. If you don't know what Disgaea is, I don't want to get bogged down too much explaining it, but in case you don't know, I'll give you a very quick crash course. It's a strategy RPG or tactical RPG as it's also called. It's both grid and turn-based. You can think of it as anime chess, with like over-the-top characters, attacks, game mechanics, and plot. It has some complicated functions like item world, for example, where you can go into an item, play multiple floors to like randomly generated maps, and then to level up the item and stuff like that. You can just follow the story and play it somewhat casually, but if you really want to get into it, Disgaea games have a post-game where you can go very deep, and it does offer a lot. So on to the Disgaea 7 demo. The setting is an interesting twist on the Edo period of Japan, with many of the names changed around a bit, but it's still another world filled with demons and monsters like in previous games. It used to be a land that respected Bushido, which is like a sort of way of life, or like a code that samurai adhere to. I'm sure you've heard of it before, it's a real life thing. But that way of life is no longer a thing in this netherworld. The story follows Fuji, a demon in quite a considerable amount of debt, who also happens to be allergic to empathy. There's also Pirilika, or Pirika, depending on how you want to pronounce that, a Bushido otaku, and she is very rich indeed. She hires Fuji in order to help her restore Bushido after she finds out that Hinomoto, that's the name of the netherworld by the way, has abandoned it. I like her as a character. You know how Disgaea characters always, there's always a couple that have a screw loose, and she definitely does. She often also mispronounces things like Japanese food names, for example, kind of like how foreigners tend to mispronounce Japanese words. She does have the blue hair, blue eyes foreigner look going on too. But at the same time, she also has that stereotypical Japanese thing, with the round otaku glasses. And they seem to descend to their active position when she gets really excited about something. There's already strange and crazy things that happen in the beginning 2 chapters there, like a castle being destroyed rather casually, and like I mentioned before, the sniffing of gunpowder. And we even have the series' signature idiotic, kind of not low-level, but also not high-level villain, who's mostly there for comedic purposes. Usually, as the cast assembles in Disgaea games, we eventually see characters' true motivations come out and more serious story elements emerge. But the demo doesn't go that far into the game, and I'm going to assume stuff like that will come to the surface in the full game when you get into it. Let's talk about gameplay. I think Disgaea 7 plays very well. It's smooth and fluid, on the PS5 and 4 anyway, and for the most part on the Switch. Having essentially skipped Disgaea 6, I don't really see anything that's wrong with Disgaea 7 at this point, but I've noticed a few changes since Disgaea 5 that I don't know when they were first introduced, likewise I don't know whether Disgaea 7 undid certain things from Disgaea 6. But anyways, there's a few things that stood out to me. For example, team attacks work differently than what I remember. Not only do they work with normal attacks and special attacks instead of just normal attacks, they're also, like, there's a bigger radius of which teammates can assist, so they don't have to be right beside or behind the attacking character to help out. I thought that was very interesting, and actually quite a big change. I've been so used to the old way of team attacks, so it's a bit of a transition. But I suppose leveling up weak characters should be quite a bit easier this way, especially that you can use special attacks. Annoyingly, there's no animation anymore when doing team attacks. I really liked how all the games had different and over-the-top team animations, or, team attack animations, but that's not the case at all. It's just like their image cuts in before the attack, and then one character just does an attack animation that's generic, so that's kind of unfortunate. Pardon the pun, but a big change is jumbification, and that new function allows you to transform units into massive versions of themselves once your rage meter fills up. Seems like a cool function, and I'm pretty sure any character can jumpify themselves. I didn't really get to test that though, but I did see generic enemy unit jumpify themselves. After jumpification, the characters stand beside the playing area rather than on top of it, and they also have like a new type of attack. You can also see what sort of buffs they have in this mode. You can do things in order to make them even stronger. For example, I saw that with my defense there could be higher if I had 5 or more units out or something like that. The demo ends after that mission, so I couldn't really experiment too much in this mode, but it looks pretty fun so far. Things like the item world aren't introduced in the demo, but certain things you get a bit of a taste of, like creating characters, and you also get access to the Dark Assembly, all very familiar things in the Disgaea world. In terms of graphics, I already mentioned a few things here and there. I played the PS5, PS4, and Switch versions in graphics mode, and they all performed well. Only the Switch version didn't reach 60 FPS during normal gameplay, but it's actually not too bad. I only played docked, so I don't know about the handheld mode there, but the PS5 and PS4 versions are obviously better, and they stayed at 60 FPS all the time no matter what happened on screen. I'm so used to that fluid feel that I can't really play Disgaea games on the Switch, to be honest. It throws me off when playing and maneuvering units, especially when I know that a better performing option exists. But there's probably many people who aren't affected by that. The game looks pretty much identical on the PS4 and 5 except the resolution. And there's also instances where the character outlines are quite aliased on the PS4. Like you can see, like, it's kind of like a broken line of, black dots, I guess. But on the PS5, it all looks perfect. It's almost like the characters are actually lower resolution than 1080p. But I don't think that's actually the case. It's just some, I don't know. You can see it for yourself here, but I think it's a bit strange. But the thing is, it only looks like that in menus and stuff. If you're just playing normally, it looks normal. The Switch version is lacking some sort of shader and bloom effect, by the way. And the game looks quite flat in comparison. It just looks a little bit beta or alpha version like, if you know what I mean. It's like that final bit of polish is missing. Now, something graphics related that I want to bring up is animations. That applies to all the ports of Disgaea 7. I think stuff like special attacks actually don't look that good. In previous games with 2D sprites, you'd have very creative and exciting attack sequences. Here they look a bit slow and not that exciting. Maybe there's like better stuff later in the game, but not from what I can see right now. The equivalent animations in, like, let's say Disgaea 5 were so much more exciting and more fun to look at. Also, team attacks don't have an animation like I said before, but I really liked how in the past there would be different animations, whether you'd have 2, 3, or 4 characters attacking all at once. Actually, when you think about it, right now is the time for live 2D. There's like amazing stuff happening with that technology because of VTubers pushing the capabilities of that tech quite far in a short amount of time. But then Nippon Ichi's like, oh, let's go to 3D. In this move, they've lost quite a bit of creative visual elements that made the series quite visually unique. Also, remember how in Disgaea 4 they had animated sprites during cutscenes? Can we have that back? Unfortunately, not something we've seen since then, although I remember 5 having blinking eyes or something. I do think the menus look really nice. They have that dark and also slightly Halloweenish style Disgaea is known for. And also importantly, it's fast and smooth to navigate despite the seemingly flamboyant and complex nature of the design. The stages seem to fit the theme and story well so far too. The maps are pretty good. I like that there's like towns and bridges and stuff. Makes it feel more like real locations that you go through in the story. Though admittedly the previous games were pretty good at that already, but I feel like it's just a tad better now than it's ever been. But yeah, that's my impression so far. In terms of gameplay, it's really fun. I like the stages quite a bit, and the story is something I can get into. Unfortunately, the animations are still disappointing, and having the game move to 3D instead of really giving their 2D sprites a nice polish is not something I'll get over with. I'll tolerate it because the rest of the game seems good, but I don't think I'll ever not complain about it. If every Disgaea game from now on is 3D, I'll complain about it every time. I'll probably buy a used copy as a protest or something, so anyway, that's that. I'm looking forward to the full game release soon. Hopefully someone sells a copy right away back to GameStop or whatever. Let me know what you think, especially if you've played Disgaea 6. There must be things I missed, since I skipped that game. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.